Hey, 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 how you doing? How you doing, everybody? Welcome to the Tarot Flow Show. Welcome to the Tarot Flow Show where synchronicity is the star. I'm your host, Allison Pickering, and I want to welcome you today to the world's only tarot talk show, at least that we know of. And it's the one that we're most familiar with. And so I want to say how happy I am to have our guest today. And my co-host, as always, or as lately, is the adorable student of the spiritual from Scandinavia, and that is Kefri Scarabus. Welcome, Kefri, to the stage. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Alison. I'm doing excellent and fun to be here.
It's always fun to have you. And today we are
Thank you.
very, very proud
Yeah.
and pleased and honored and privileged to have someone who shares a lot of background with us. Surprisingly, it was such a delight to find someone who kind of goes back a ways with this kind of thing. And she's a really beautiful woman that I've gotten to know in some other contexts. And she is a singer and a lover of music. So we also have that in common. She is a spiritual being having a life journey. So all of us have that in common with her. And she specializes professionally in finding dream homes for people in the United States and in Portugal. And that is the beautiful and the wonderful and gorgeous LaLa Key. Welcome to the stage, LaLa. Thank you for
Thanks
joining
for
us.
having me. I'm excited about being here.
I'm so happy to have you here. Tell us a little bit about your experiences with spiritual thinking or with tarot, whatever it is that you would like to share, because I don't think you're a stranger to all this.
Not, but it's really interesting how I came to it. Born and raised in Little Prospect, Kentucky, which is right outside of Louisville, Kentucky. At the time that I came up, I call it my little village because it was just a small neighborhood. My background came from the Baptist church, and I grew up in the Baptist church, sang in the choir, went to prayer meeting, did all of that. You know, you didn't look at none of the tarot stuff that was not acceptable. It wasn't looked at as woo woo or evil, and that you could be bringing in evil things into your life if you touch those things. And so I grew up like not touching any of that, but always having a little curiosity about it. But never afraid to do it. So much later in my life, I ended up with a really good friend in Denver, Colorado. And I was going through a spiritual awakening at that time because I had something really bad happen in the church with the leader, and it really broke me. And so I don't know what happened with that. I'm having some feedback, aren't I?
I'm trying to fix it on my end. I don't know which end it's on, but we can proceed. And I'm hearing a little clickety clickety, so hopefully it won't be too bad. And if it is, then we'll just come back and do another show. How about that?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
So I was having issues with a minister, and I was really broken about the church, and so I had stepped back from the church. So when I was just mentioning this to my friend in Denver, she was like, you know what, I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm going to just say it. I'm interested in the OTA, and I thought maybe you might want to look into that. So I was curious. So when she mentioned that, I started to learn in Denver. I subscribed to the classes, which is the Builders of the Addendum, and then actually started studying with her a little bit. Then I was blessed enough to move to Los Angeles and attend Temple. So I was going to Temple and many of the extra events that was blessed enough to also sing in the Temple. So that's how I came about it. But I was in my 40s before all that happened.
Well, I'm so happy that you have taken the time to be on the show with us today. It's a lot of fun to do readings. We never really know what's going to happen, and so it's always just kind of a crapshoot, as they say here. Let's take a look at what we're going to be doing today with you, at what you have subjected yourself to, shall we say?
Yes.
And we're very happy again to have you here, and thank you. So we've gotten to know you a teeny tiny bit, and we're going to have a little tour of the major arcana and later the minor arcana. We're going to pick a focus card to take a little bit of an analytical approach to show how much is built into a card. And that won't be the reading per se. That's just going to be us noticing, all of us, how rich each card is with symbolism. And then we're going to make some connections perhaps there, and then jump into a 7-card reading, which, as always, is no kind of solid prediction of the future. We are not claiming this to be gospel. What we are doing is, and I don't know if you connect with this, but I talk about how we kind of go along a horizontal timeline. You know, we kind of hop along in time in the world. Once in a while, we have a chance to kind of pause for a moment and consider the larger moment, to consider what's possible to learn in a particular moment, to have a talk or a meditation or a prayer or some kind of experience where you can connect with higher aspects of yourself. And tarot is a wonderful tool to do that with, because it is so amazingly deep and built so mysteriously and compellingly, shall we say. And you don't it makes no sense for me to describe it, because, as always, it's about experiencing it and considering it, shall we say.
Yes.
For anybody watching who wants to explore any of this further, go ahead and jump onto ALISONPickering.com, because as we get into the latter part of 2024, we're going to be starting an academy and some events and some travel experiences and some different kind of tarotainment and all kinds of good stuff. So inviting everybody to join us with that. And anybody who wants to be on the show, you can connect with us through ALISONPickering.com. So let's take a look at the major player in the tarot. And this is not a person. It's not a man. It's not a woman. It's the picture itself is an attempt to represent a larger archetype within our consciousness. And this Fool figure, who's the main character, the main traveler in the tarot, is kind of like the spirit unmanifest. And you can see this figure there with a very ornate robe. That implies that it's not his first go-round or her first go-round. There's a white rose in the hand, indicating a purity of intent. The little animal is our instinctive self, our little physical body, our instincts saying, no, it's too scary, don't do it. And yet the spirit is willing. That willingness is very characteristic and really hallmark of the Fool, being willing to take that leap. And where is he leaping, or she leaping? Into this kind of experience, yet another lifetime. And so we're going to see here in this these 21, the rest of the 22 major arcana, the Fool is the 0, and here we have 1 through 21. We can very oversimplifiedly, if I can use a big, long, kind of crazy word there, we can say that for the purposes of just getting oriented to this, the first row, the first horizontal row, would be like internal resources and early education. And so I'm going to take us off camera for a moment to look at these cards. And in the first row, you could say that Magician and High Priestess are like our internal masculine and feminine polarity. Then all of us have a physical mother and father, whether or not we ever even knew them or interacted with them. We had them as a physical thing in order to get here. We also got educated into the social mores and into a belief structure. And usually the people around us brought us up the way they thought of, and that's how we came up. That's the Hierophant figure. And then we have relationships. We make choices in our encounters with others. That's the Lover's card. We travel beyond our initial circumstances. That's the Chariot. And then our mutual friend that we know, Anne Marie, she called that middle row here adulting, which I like, the lessons of adulthood. And so you have the lessons of managing your passions with the Strengths card, managing solitude and your own individual pathway with the Hermit, other people's trajectories and the fates, shall we say, with the Wheel of Fortune. What about law, universal law, municipal law, lawsuits, all that kind of stuff? The Justice card, that's certainly been very primary in your life, I have heard. And wishing you much luck and much success in seeking justice there. The Hanged Man is this kind of pause period where you can't really do anything because this is enforced upon you. Perhaps that's where you're at these days too. And then there's other things that come through and you cannot resist them. COVID, for example, we could, it's a big thing we all had to respond to. And the way we do that also is a kind of test, and that's the temperance card, where we begin to figure out how we can come back into balance and find our way through these tests. And then on the bottom row, we could represent those as states of consciousness. You could be extremely materialistic and power driven, and that's kind of the devil card. If that's your only priority, then usually life and reality will come in and knock the lid off of that and throw you into a bit of a reversal. And then you're kind of left naked unto yourself. And who are you really in that star card? What is your authenticity? That's usually a rather emotional, confusing process to figure out, which is the moon card. If we are fortunate, we can touch the divinity and feel that source, and then it can carry us, like in that sun card. And that gives us the opportunity to wake up and march to a different drummer, like that judgment card, and then come to what is both a victory and an ending and a new beginning with that world card. And if you look at the first card, the magician, he has one wand, and then our world card at the end with this victorious purple sash has the two wands of victorious wreaths. And then the same four characters from the Wheel of Fortune are now in focus, heads only, in the corners of the world card, accompanying this fool who has now gone through all of these things and is ready to transcend and perhaps do it again. So as we think about these cards, LaLa, when we look at them, are there any in particular, or is there a particular one that you might like to unpack today?
Yeah, the star.
A popular card indeed. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Kefri's going to share his screen.
Going to do that. Coming up.
And we're going to see our star.
There we have it.
There she is. The star is a beautiful card. We can see the big yellow star, and that golden white yellow is very evocative. Those who are involved in the Kabbalistic study know that yellow is very much at the heart of the tree of life. It's at the place of Christ consciousness. It's the large star in the middle here. There are 8 points on the star, and if you count all the stars with their 8 points, including that big one, there are 8 of them. This is a number 17 card. That is number 8 numerologically. I'm going to unpack a couple of the symbols, and then Kefri's going to come in with some other things. We can notice this woman, and let's look at her foot. Her foot, in contrast to, for example, the angel from the Temperance card, whose foot went into the water. This person, this being's foot is not sinking into the water. That tells us that she is of a different sort. She doesn't really have too much detail on her body, other than the fact that she is unclothed, which means that she can be pure and unadulterated or whatever, and doesn't need to be clothed. And she carries these 2 jugs of water, these 2 ewers, and pours both into the waters of our unconscious as well as the land, which is representing our conscious mind. And there's 5 little rivulets representing our 5 senses with which we navigate the world. What else can we think about and see represented in this star card, Kefri?
As I have been saying before, Alison, I call this card the magic of the universe, because this is the magic that emanates in the universe when the divine energy comes in, so to speak. And it has a lot of things in it. We have that little Libesbird up in the tree, for example, that could be an reference to alchemy and the magic of Egypt, and also probably that's the origin of the tarot cards. Even if it wasn't tarot cards in Egypt, it perhaps was more rules to live after or something. But we don't know that. But that's one thing. The other thing I think is so interesting is the pouring of water here, that one vessel is poured directly into the water itself, going back to its source, so to speak, and the other is poured on the land. But what we see is that the water is also going back to the source, actually. And also, if we look at it closely, we can see it is 5 rivers there. That probably is a reference to the 5 rivers out and in of the Garden of Eden. So that is things in this. And then also this mysterious 8-pointed star that is also consisting this card of in total 8-pointed stars. And that is also interesting because 8 times 8 is 64. And that is exactly how a chessboard is arranged, actually, with the black and the white squares. And that is also, if we know Masonic teachings, the floor of the Masonic teachings. So there is deep things in this card. And also looking at the Hebrew letter for this card, it's Tzadi. And Tzadi, the symbol for Tzadi is a fish hook. And this is like lowering a fish hook down into the unconscious to see which fish that catch it, so to speak. So this is going deep in ourself, actually, to find an answer to something with the help of the magic of the universe. So that's a bit what's in here, Alison.
Thank you, Kefri. So, LaLa, we have gone into all the arcane symbolism and all that kind of crazy stuff. But in reality, the cards are developed also for us to get a holistic impression and to get an evocative emotional impression. What kinds of things come to mind for you, and what drove you, for example, to be attracted to the star card?
Well, water for me. I'm a Pisces, and I am a water sign, and I do have a lot of water in my chart. It's something about the flowing of life to me. This represents some type of flowing of life. You flow, it flows through you wherever you're doing it. You have to be poured into as well to pour out. So this card really is speaking to me now, because I am fighting to balance, and this is peaceful to me. This is my peace comfort that I like to think about. But I don't always want to just draw. I don't always want to be being poured into. I think it's very important for us to also pour into others, and this is peaceful to me.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. It's also very much a card of hope, a card of purity of intention, a card of idealism, and things like that. And so there's a great deal that we can see, both by breaking a card apart into its symbols and see what it's made of, and then also what it brings out in us and what it allows us to perhaps communicate to others. And you bring up a really good point that's represented in the card with the pouring onto the land, going back into the sources that we do as we process and as we receive. We also are able to give back. We are able to give back up to the universe as well as to others. And so we can draw it down, and we can also kind of send it back up. And these are all important aspects of the spiritual work as we begin to concentrate not only on what we're bumping into in the physical realm, but what we have that we can explore within. So thank you very much for helping us with that unpacking process. Let's take a look at some of the minor arcana. So we saw that these majors are 22, and then the tarot deck is 78. And so that leaves us with more than double the amount of cards in what are the ancestors of the playing cards that they use in Vegas, or you might use for playing gin rummy or bridge or whatever games you might be playing. And you can see the 4 suits. We have on the left the wands, which are connected to fire. And then we have the cups, which are connected to water. We have the swords, which are connected to air. And then the pentacles, or the coins, which are connected to earth. If you are looking for those playing card connections, the wands on the left are like the clubs. The hearts are like the cups. The spades are like the swords. And then the diamonds are like the pentacles that we have here, or the coins. Why is there a 5-pointed star on the coin? Why is there a pentagram on the pentacle? This is because our currency, shall we say, in this physical world, and the pentacle suit is the physical world represented, is our 5 senses. We have our body, and we need to figure out the world, and the tools that we have at our disposal are our 5 senses of sight, sound, hearing, taste, and touch. And then we also have our mental function represented with the swords, the emotions with the cups, and then we don't control it, but we can receive from the wands realm and hopefully establish a good connection to that realm of the wands. If we wanted to look at this Kabbalistically, we would then kind of flip these up like this so that the wands were coming in from the top. And let's imagine an idea, bringing an idea from inception all the way into the physical reality. We first get the idea, and that's the spark. That's the wands. If anything is going to happen with that idea, we're going to have to care about it and invest it with emotional energy. That's the cups. Then it's going to have to come into a more rational function and get planned for. Perhaps lists, a timeline, things like that. You start getting analytical with it, and then only then are you able to really bring it into the physical as represented with those pentacles. And another feature of the pentacle, and we can look at those knights along the bottom here, there's a lot of speed and movement represented within the 3 suits until we get to the pentacles, and that is the slowest of our horses. And the reason for that is because our medium, when we have our vehicle is our body, but our medium is time, and things take time. We got to be conceived and then gestated and then born, and then we spend like 18 years getting it together before we get to our adulting, shall we say, and that pentacle, that knight of pentacles there, has to be a trusty guy to be able to stand and guard the field that's been freshly plowed so that the crows don't pick it over and take all the seed, so that no one starves. There's the idea that we have to eat, and there's cycles of time in the world. So we could go on, and I certainly have gone on until this point. So let's move on. Let's take a look at the wands, 1 through 5, 6 through 10, and then our court cards on the right. And we can see that there's lots of fiery symbols in those court cards with salamanders, the desert, there's flames, there's sunflowers, there's all kind of lions, very fiery symbols there. In contrast to the cups, we have our 1 through 5 and 6 through 10, and then our court cards there, lots of shells and fish and water. And there's even some Mercury wings, because there's also the idea of emotional purpose and senses there. There are angels, there's little mermaids, all kinds of watery symbols in the court cards. It cools down a bit in the swords. The swords are the suit of thought and intellect and the rational function, which is quite less emotional. And you want someone to be able to carry out the deed. Let's say you want a surgeon who's not going to faint from all the blood. You need someone who's going to keep a cool head in times of trouble. But you can see also how if you just stay in the world of thought, it can be pretty rough. Looking at that 9 and the 10, we can really hurt ourselves or hurt others with our words and thoughts. And then let's also notice in the court cards, lots of the air symbols. There's wind and birds and clouds and all kinds. And you can see a lot of movement. There's butterflies as well, air symbols. And then moving into the sign of earth and resources and responsibility with the pentacles, we can see all of and lots of yellow here. We're getting down into where the sun is down in our sky, and you can see lots of fertility symbols. There's agriculture and grapes and animals and birds and plants and all kinds of earthy symbols in those. So that's like our visual vocabulary. And we can do different types of readings. Here's an example of a 13-card reading, which is kind of called a Celtic cross or a field and road. We're going to do a 7-card reading today, which can be deceptively simple and sufficiently complex to serve our purposes today. If we look at this reading, I'll move us a little bit to make it a bit larger. We can see that there's an issue at hand at the top middle. up in here. There's our issue, and you can focus us, LaLa, or we can see what the cards want to say. You'll let us know. At the bottom, we're doing a little timeline, and this could be anchored like in the present. This could be what happened a little while ago, what's going on now, and then what's coming up soon. It could be predictive in that way, or we might be looking at something that has happened, and we're looking at kind of a vignette timeline of it, and then getting some advice on how to deal with it because it's still lingering. What's going to be best for us to be cautious about on the top left. So even though it might be my default mode, let's say I don't know, I want to fight back. Maybe that's that, it might be best to be cautious about things. That's just an example. That's not necessarily the card that's going to come up. On the other hand, to the top right is going to be some more supportive advice, something that's going to be more in line with the greater good and for your own personal development. And then towards the end, we'll pick a seventh card. It's represented larger here because it looks larger in our layout. It's not that this is more important than the others, and it will also give us an opportunity to get some perspective on the other cards. So that's what we're going to do. Might you have any questions at this point?
I don't.
Okay. Well, Kefri has been shuffling and shuffling and shuffling while we've been doing this. He's been getting the vibe of the whole thing. So I'm going to take myself off camera for a moment, and he's going to prompt you through the process of shuffling and pulling the cards.
Okay.
And then we'll come back in for the reading.
All right.
Thank you, Alison. And LaLa, I am shuffling, and you say stop where you want the stop to be.
All right. Stop.
There. And how many times do you want to cut the deck?
3.
3 times. Thank you. 1 and 2 and 3. And there we go. And we will see what the subject card is now. And the subject card is the Queen of Pentacles.
Oh.
And
really?
the past card, the past card is the Fool card. And the present card is the Page of Swords. And the future card is the 5 of Wands. And the cautionary card, what not to choose or what not to do, is the 6 of Cups. And the advice card, or what is good to do, is the 6 of Wands.
Oh,
And
2 6s, huh?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And we wait with the 7th card. So there we are.
Is interesting.
It
So
is.
6s, and 6s are nice because they are at a place of kind of the hinge point of harmony. In the minors, you've got your 1 through 5, and then the 6 through 10, and the 1 is like the seed, and that 6 is a harmonious place. Let's go ahead and focus right now on the Queen of Pentacles.
Yeah.
So this is kind of you are handling the situation, shall we say?
Shall we say, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you've taken responsibility for this. You've taken it on, and you are really kind of shepherding this to bring it to its best possible result. I think that there's a sense of preciousness and purpose, and also a sense of time going by. That rabbit kind of going by is that sense of urgency and of time. And she's a beautiful queen, but she has a bit of a melancholy look to her, and so there's a certain amount of not sorrow, but there's a sense of that the responsibility is not an easy one. She does it well, and she does it very completely, but not everyone sees how hard she has to work to do that. And that's part of the external beauty of that queen, is the fact that she's able to make it look easy, but it's not easy. It takes a lot to shepherd all that kind of power and resource and pull it together and make it happen in the way that she does. And so hats off to you for being in that role. It's not so easy. I want to take a look at the timeline right now, but I want to focus on the middle one first, if that's okay. Can we look at that Page of Swords? So if we were going to anchor the queen with kind of the present time, then the queen is really handling a lot of this stuff on her own, because there's an element of secrecy and an element of strategy that has to be in play here. And the scouting, information gathering, spy kind of qualities of the Page of Swords might be part of the handling that you're doing right now. That coin in the hand of the queen has to do with something that requires some stealth and strategy and smarts, and not talking about it too much to other people. Let's look before this. Before this was the Fool card. I want to say that this was kind of pre-everything. And it felt good back then, and everything felt like it was possible. And then it's kind of like that was then.
Right.
You know, it was a lighter period then. And, but when that jump had to be taken, at when it was la-di-da back then, since then it has shifted, and it shifted into a lot of responsibility for you. And now you're in a place where you have to be more in a strategic thinking place. So rather than just kind of being able to live your life, you now have to kind of plan your life around an agenda. And that's where that kind of page is coming in. So from this sense of all possibility and, oh, the whole world is mine and all this kind of stuff, it's narrowed down to a kind of heavy focus on the thinking that's represented with that page. Let's take a look at that page again, please. And so now your time is spent in a cooler environment, and it's so interesting to think about how literal this is in terms of the wind, the clouds, the climate that comes through. In some of the things that we've talked about before, this could be quite physically true for you, and as well as being kind of a place from which to think, a place of a great deal of air movement in which you can let that air function and that strategizing kind of cook and work for you to the advantage to make it possible for you to carry out your mission. And as this page moves forward, it's going to be interesting because you're not working completely alone in this, even though you are in such a leadership position. And so as we move into this future position, and this may be where you're at right now in this Five of Wands position, it's like there isn't yet a big agreement on how to handle everything. The ways that people want it. So maybe some people want, just to take an example, like if you were selling a house or something, some people want to cash out. Other people want to carry paper. Other people want to just hang onto the property, and nobody can come to an agreement, you know? And so in whatever we're looking at in this case, it may be that the different parties, some people just want to have it be over. They don't want to have to worry about it anymore. Other people are seeking justice, and other people want to have pay. You know, it's and everybody might have a different definition of what justice is and what righteousness is and what the payoff is or what freedom is in this, you know, because it may be completely legit for someone to want to just have it be over, just have it be over in some way. On the other hand, somebody else says, no, we need to put together the structure. We need to make this pentagram. And so we can see that these figures are almost ready to make a little star out of these 5 wands, but they can't yet. But they're not killing each other like in the Five of Swords. They're not. This is not like the death battle. This is more like the brainstorming, the sparring. Perhaps this is the team of people strategizing what's going to be the best way to get the best result, but you still have to define what the best result is. And so that may still be kind of in question. And so back to that Page of Swords, it may be that there is research required to figure out what the opportunities are in terms of results.
Because all makes sense. Totally makes sense.
Yeah. And so, and it's entirely possible that I'm projecting into this reading what little bit I have kind of heard and know about what's going on with you, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's what we're looking at. But the idea being that is that you don't necessarily know everything you need to know about what's possible until you do the research. And some people don't even want to do the research. They just want to have it be over with. And so that leadership position that you're taking is ensuring that the appropriate knowledge is gained before decisions are made. And so you have to sustain that paginess through this period of communication and strategizing and mutual agreement that has to be come to. It's going to be important for you to maintain current information, legal information, probably from multiple parties, so that you're ensuring that you get a different kind of expertise represented. And some people may not like to do that because it costs money. But if you're the one who's holding the purse strings and you're the one who's going to be kind of handling this, that's in your wheelhouse. That's your purview. And so, and other people may not like that. They may be like, why are you spending money on that? We already had one lawyer. Why are you getting another lawyer or something like that? And that's just a bunch of noise at this point. It's not true conflict. It's just the bouncing around of ideas, because everybody wants to feel like they have a piece of this or a part of it, because nobody wants to abandon the situation, but you're the only one who wants to lead it. So that's what you're doing. Let's look at the 2 6s here, because I think they're very interesting, and they are kind of next to each other in the sequence of events. But the one that is recommended against is the 6 of Cups. And let's look at that. I very often read this card as being taking care of parents. And so I wonder if the older members of your family want this to be over and just want to expedite, and you are hanging on to fight. I don't know that that's the case, but that might be represented here. But I want to say that if this is the recommendation against, don't be too nice. There's a certain loving tenderness here, and it's toward an older woman. And so I wonder if you have to maybe go against some of the wishes of some of the older members of your family, and that causes friction.
Not so much. I would be the older person in this situation.
Okay. So I'm going to defer to Kefri on this recommendation against, because it's a challenge for me right now. And he'll probably say some things that'll have some sense for me, and then I'm going to take a look at the advice for, and then that might give me a little bit more over here. Let's take a look at that 6 of Wands, please. So the recommendation is definitely to carry. So from the 5 that we saw in the future, now with the recommendation of the 6, it's really a lot of continuation of that energy. So bring that brainstorming energy of that 5 of Wands, and really know that you have it within you to carry this forward to victory, to lead the people who are involved in this to an appropriate solution, and to be proud of the role that you're playing. It's very important that you, not that it's from an ego-driven place, but it's an act of service, and you want to see it through. And other people may be recommending to abandon, and I don't think you should abandon. Or it might be nice, and maybe the 6 is representing kind of a settlement of some sort. and I think that a settlement or a make nice in this is not recommended. You should go forward and carry this to victory. So that's what I'm seeing here in this. And I recognize that I'm bringing a lot of presumption. So pardon my projection into this reading. It's always a danger for a reader to do this. But it just seems to be what's represented. And other things maybe will be represented. And Kefri will probably bring those things up. And so that's what I see in this. LaLa, you're welcome to talk at this point, or wait till Kefri says you're getting the recording. So, this is a bit of a fire hose.
No problem. I've got thoughts, but I'm gonna let Kefri do his thing, and then I'm gonna see how those two marry.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kefri. Thank you, LaLa. I'll see you in a moment.
Thank you. I am going to look a bit deeper on this card, I think, and Alison has already touched on certain things. And one of the things is that has been said that you work in the dark, so to speak, in a stealth position. But I think also with your spiritual development, that can also have a meaning that you feel that you often are in the dark. You don't find the light as you want it to be, actually. And this is nothing to be afraid of, because this is the way that your path is in spiritual development, I believe. And you manage that also very, very good, actually. And you also have built an intuition that is gradually getting stronger and stronger, I would say. And you have been very clear from the beginning how you want your spiritual development to be. And you have already said to us that you are a part of the BOTA, and you have learned a lot there and everything. And it's like you have a vehicle, but you don't have anything to drive it forward for the moment, so to speak, as I can see it. But you have also chosen a path of the fool, we can say, that you are very light looking at what comes in your way, and you like what you meet, and you try to see what's the spiritual meaning of that, and how should I solve that, and so on and so on. And that also enlarges your intuition, actually, because that Page of Swords, as Alison already has been into, is sniffing in things, actually. And you can more and more also see when somebody is trying to take something from you that you don't want to give, actually. You get better and better on that, and that has to do with your leadership position also, and you grow in that, actually. And the Five of Wands there, something have to be built and something will be built, actually, and you will be the manager of that. No question about that. And a group is difficult to manage, but I think you are very good in instilling a sort of a team feeling in a group, because you can both be nice and be harder when it is needed, actually, to drive people forward. And that is in the mundane plane, so to speak. But as I've said before, you lack a bit of that ability with your spirituality development. You want to have something that forces you forward, so to speak. And it is, if we look at this advice card, it's quite interesting with the Six of cups there in the cautionary position. And now I will be specific here, and we can take this away if it not should be here. But I think Alison has already seen an older woman in this card, and I think that is Ann Davis, as you do the BUTA teachings. But I also see in the Six of Cups there is a person walking away there in the end of the left side of the card, and I think that is Paul Foster Case, because I think that you should return to Paul Foster Case's original teaching also, and not just look at Ann Davis' teachings, because that is good teachings, but they complete each other actually, as I see it. And I am not a member of the BUTA, so that's my take on it, so to speak. But look at both of them, because I think you will get the light in the darkness that you experience so often actually in your spiritual teachings, that will come here. And both of them are like initiators, so you need both of them to take steps actually. And the Six of Wands here, know when you do progress in your spiritual training, and admit that to yourself, and see how good you are in that moment. And that is a short-lived victory, but be in that victory to feel the energy from that victory, because that's important, because that is your spiritual strength that shows that way actually. And that comes more and more if you do that actually. And we shall look at the seventh card now. Yeah. And it is the Ace of Wands, because there is something here that I think is connected to that that thing you think you lack in your spiritual development, so to speak. But I will let Alison go first with this seventh card, and see what you see, Alison.
I think this is an infusion of energy. It's kind of a re-energizing. So if you are going to be getting back into things, it's kind of a recharge. And if we were going to, and so you've noticed probably, LaLa, in this reading that I tend to read kind of in the mundane. I read, how does this play out in terms of your everyday life and activities and how you might be thinking about it. And so in that way, this Ace of Wands can represent a new idea that you have about a way to approach your situation. So if we're talking again about your work life and your the situation with the legal engagements and all those strategies that we were talking about, it may be that as you are in that consulting mode, or in this brainstorming mode, as you're trying to figure out what are you going to do, what's going to be the best structure for this attack or whatever it's going to be, that you haven't yet come upon, and it will, or maybe this is, as the five come together into a whole strategy, you're going to say, oh, look, this is the driver. There's going to be a kind of a synergy that happens. So instead of 5 equaling 5, it's going to be 5 equaling 10, because you've got this new infusion of the big new wand in there. And so I would say that it's a re-energizing of the situation that will be coming out of what you learn in your research and what you gain from the brainstorming / argument / hashing it out process that you do with the interested parties in this situation. As you have those discussions, all of a sudden something is going to be coming through, and you're going to know that that's going to be the key to victory. That's going to be the wand that you carry in hand, that's going to have that wreath on it. And you know, that's going to give you this sense of knowing, okay, that's going to be and with this now we can move. Until then, we couldn't move. But as it comes together and you're like, oh, now we're going to roll. That's what I sense is kind of a product of all of what we're seeing here. And that can be also part of a spiritual infusion because it's going to be giving you kind of contact and confidence, so to speak. And it's also going to be an intellectual process because all of a sudden you're going to start seeing these different elements that seem disconnected are going to start coming together and then being that much more powerful. Yeah. So Kefri, that's my take.
Yeah, thank you, Alison. I am in the same region as you here, but I am in a region where I see that the fresh energies come from above here, actually, and that is because we know that the once is represented by the highest world in the tree of life, and your inspiration spiritually come from the highest place, and you should listen to that because there is something there that is going to tell you how you can enlarge this thing and find this tool that will drive your vessel forward as you want. And that tool could also be the tarot cards, actually. They could be going deeper in the cards and do meditations with them, not necessarily do readings, but do meditations with them and search deeper in them. And I know that you already do that, but perhaps working more with it and see it as a way of a tool that can help you to take steps forward, actually, and also that is connected to your idea with what you want to do in mundane life also, and how you want to organize things and so on. And I also think that when you have solved your problems that you have been talking a bit about with law and so on, that vessel will also be ready to move forward, actually. There is something there that needs to be solved before there can be built a foundation to take it further. And when you are in that stage, everything will unfold, actually, and you will have a base to stand on, to work out from. And I stop there. Thank you.
Makes sense, and it's interesting because
Thank you.
in BOTA we color our own keys.
Yeah, I know.
We don't call them cards; we call them keys.
I know.
And it's been a couple of years since I've touched them, and it's interesting because it's been calling me recently, and so much so I went to go pull them back out again along with the studies. I've been called that way, so that makes complete sense. But it's also very interesting because that 6 of Cups, I keep going back to that one as we're talking. For some reason, it's something like tapping on me that I need to dig into a little further. The other ones all make sense. I totally get it. I totally see it. And I'm doing my best to step back from the situation, and I know that I'm seeing this done so that I'm not just seeing what I think I want to see, because you can do that. But I think the key to that is me unlocking that 6 of Cups.
Yeah.
And what would it look like to unlock that? Do you mean just to understand or to contemplate it, or are you interpreting it in a particular way?
I don't, I will share this. Maybe this will help infuse a little bit into this, because I'm not really sure yet. My sisters, whom I lost, we didn't grow up together. So our commonality is my birth mother. I didn't really get to know them until I was 18. The thing that all brought us together is I met them when I was 18, but when my birth mother passed, they called me because they had never lost anyone before. So I went to help make her transition. For some reason, this seems to me like this is Joyce, and I don't often think of her in that way, but I'm not really sure.
Well, you would certainly be putting her heart at ease by doing this work. But the fact that this is in the recommendation against is also kind of interesting. So I'm having a hard time with this one, and I'm sorry that I don't like doing that on camera.
No, but that's okay, because this, to me, when that happens, that means you just need to unlock the door to that. I don't know what that. I know it's there. I know I've got the key. I just need to put it in the door and go, oh, it needs to be turned to the left instead of the right. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Very interesting. It's right on point, I believe.
Well, I appreciate your being so open to explore this with us, and this is basically what we're kind of doing. My intent is to kind of make the process transparent, or pull back the so-called curtain on this, so people can see how we do a divination and how we explore these images in their particular positional meanings. And I do see the flow from perhaps moving from, rather than being, okay, this is another way I could see this card. Rather than being driven from a sense of obligation and emotional need, the driver in this can be the energy of righteousness with that page of sword, and finding out what can be done and what's possible to do and things like that. And bring this from a place of emotional comfort and into a place of victory. So that the balance isn't in reconciling yourself to the feelings, but rather representing and doing what they couldn't do, what they can't do, what your sisters can't do, you can. And rather than doing this out of a sense of obligation or grief or anything like that, you can do it as kind of a gesture of service and being the flag bearer for their cause. Not crying over their loss, but carrying forward their little longer kind of thing, and the righteousness of whatever that cause is. There's something about, rather than the emotional, going to the original driver, which is there's a sense of importance there that isn't about ego. And it isn't about strategy, even though we've talked about strategy. It's just more about the impulse and taking that impulse forward. What you feel impulse to do, what you feel impelled to do it. Don't say, oh, well, I just have to kind of recognize my feelings and get over it. No.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense too. This is it's enlightening.
This is what we do to entertain ourselves.
Yeah, right. But what's so funny is I had put these things away, and I always, and you always hear that the teacher presents itself when you're ready. And so I had put these things away, just focusing on so many other things of life, that it's like all of a sudden I've had this tapping, you need to go back to this. You need to get back to your studies. And then you came along in my life, and it was like, okay, now I got to listen. It's just it's that thing.
Well, I'm happy to be that, and very happy to meet you, and to have any part in reconnecting you with this area of study, because I certainly feel it's important, and it was important to you at one point, and it seems like it's coming back around. Kefri, what is the book? There's a book called Meditations on Tarot. Is that Paul Clark or is that Paul Case?
No, it's none of them. The meditation on tarot is without an author actually, but there is an author that I know have forgotten the name of, but it's a Christian take on the tarot cards in the major arcana actually, and there is one chapter for each card, and they are written like in a sort of a letter form actually. It's a very
I
good
have
book.
that.
Yeah.
That's the blue book, right?
Yep.
Yeah, with the hermit on the cover, I believe.
I have that. It's interesting.
Well,
I have
good.
that.
Well, and so that might be something that you can kind of dip into, or sometimes I'll just kind of open a book to a page. What'll help me to think about today?
Right.
You know, if I want to read the whole
Yeah.
book, kind of
Yeah.
feel it like an oracle.
Yeah, that tends to work for me. Just let it fall open.
Exactly. Like go to a bookstore, see what falls on your head, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
listen,
interesting.
LaLa, I so appreciate your being here and coming to subject yourself to this whole situation. And I hope you will come back again and maybe give us an update and see how things are going with you. And if you feel like playing with tarot cards and want to come on and do commentary, and because sometimes we're going to do, I think, like a little tarot tank where we might have people come on and we have a bunch of different readers give their take on different cards and stuff like that.
I would love to.
Oh, that'd be great. That would be great. So I look forward to any future interactions. I appreciate your being here today. For those who are still with us, and thank you if you're still with us, you have a wonderful attention span, everybody. What would you tell people if you were going to give people some advice? Let's get a better little angle for us here. If you were going to give some folks some advice and they said, LaLa, give me some words of wisdom. I need some words of wisdom. What's the little pithy word of wisdom that you could share with the world that has been helpful for you?
You're
not to put you on the spot or anything.
No, I actually, and it just came to me because it's the truth. You have the ability to know which way to go. You just have to trust that voice. A lot of the times people tell you don't trust it, or you want to fight against it because maybe it's not telling you something that you want to hear. But that radar, that little spark that tells you, and you know when it tells you, because it's like a voice and you're like, who's that? You know, I've had that happen before where you hear it as clear as day. Trust it. It's not easy to always want to. I think as children, we trust it more than we do as we become adults, but go back into it as a child and always listen to that, because that's where your answers are. And not to struggle with that, just go with the flow with that, because it's there for you to be your guide.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your words of wisdom and thank you for sharing them. Stay with us for a moment before we go off today. I'm going to go ahead and take us out with some music, and then we'll have a chance to talk a bit afterwards. Thank you, everybody, for being here on the Tarot Flow Show. Come on down to AlisonPickering.com at whatever point you want to, and you can entertain yourself this way too. So thank you, LaLa Key, for being with us today. It's much appreciated.
Thank you.